begins a new era, a new time in public education in our country. As of this hour, America's schools will be on a new path of reform and a new path of results. Our schools will have higher expectations. We believe every child can learn. Our schools will have greater resources to help meet those goals.
Hi, I'm Keitha McCaul-Jackson, residing on the lovely island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I would like to take this opportunity to discuss the Education Revolution policy that was implemented years ago. Although the Education Revolution policy was launched and implemented, to this day there is not a policy document that proves it was approved. This policy has a historical and ongoing process that has shaped the education landscape in SVG. Although the No Child Left Behind policy was adopted by Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves from the United Nations under George W. Bush presidency and failed miserably. However, even though Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves adopted the policy, he made it his own, and he had good intentions for every school-age citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Administration, led by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, came with its own ideas and vision about the direction in which it wanted the country to be developed. It wasn't long before it became evident that education would factor most prominently into that plan. Today, 10 years into the new millennium, a dynamic, multi-dimensional education revolution has taken place, one which boasts as its achievements the attainment of universal secondary education and vast improvements in access to university and post-secondary institutions, as well as a steady move towards another milestone, the attainment of universal early childhood education. By the early 2000s, St. Vincent and the Grenadines had long since achieved universal primary education. In fact, this was so since the early 70s. Therefore, achieving universal primary education was not a goal that was necessary for the government. Where they placed their initial focus was on opening up access to secondary schools.
Let's dive into the weaknesses of the Education Revolution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The dropout school rates were high even though incentives were in place for students. A lot of children still had gaps in their education, which caused teachers to lose a lot of instructional time. Most children just went through the motion of schooling because they knew that even if they failed, they still would be promoted to the next class, up, and out. That was the system. Little to no remediation work was done for students. More teachers were frustrated because of the heavy workload they had of planning for so many different abilities in one classroom. Most teachers were not trained in special education. Many students were absent regularly from school, which caused a gap in their education. School attendance officers slighted their roles in schools. Today, the Education Revolution policy reflects the need for continuous improvement and innovation, as well as dialogue and collaboration in the education sector. It is not a finished product, but a work in progress that requires constant monitoring, feedback, and adjustment.
Inclusion is not just an imaginary concept, but a beautiful reality, as the Georgetown Secondary School now has differently abled students as part of their general school population. These students achieved academic excellence during the 2022 sitting of the CPEA exams. This state of inclusion in the general school population gives hope that nothing is impossible and that everyone can reach their maximum potential given the conduciveness of the environment to grow and overcome.
The policy also requires the involvement and engagement of all stakeholders who have a shared responsibility and a common vision for the future of education in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The policy is not only a matter of policy, but also a matter of practice that demands action and change from all actors in the education system.
And I'm hoping that as the time goes by that they will keep up that level of, as they go up to higher forms and so on, that they will continue.
School safety is multifaceted and inclusive of health, security, sustainability, and access to information.
The idea is that secondary education is really a stage of development and that children should move with their peers to avoid mismatching. This is one that has evidently been embraced by the Ministry of Education. Dr. Warrican approves of the approach.
Universal secondary education is taught of along two lines. Education for secondary children is taught of along two lines. One, that for you to go to secondary school, you should master certain skills. And that is idealistic. It is good, but it's idealistic. We know that no two child learn the same way. No two child is going to move at the same pace. So we're going to have children leaving secondary school or getting ready to go into that level who do not have the requisite skills for secondary school. The question is, should you leave them in primary school until they get that requisite skill? The challenge with that is that among 5 and 6 year olds, you might have 14 and 15-year-old students. To me, that is not a good situation.
In that box is the bill. I don't intend to read it all. It's not exactly light reading. But if you were to read it all, you would find that it contains some very important principles that'll help guide our public school system for the next decades. First principle is accountability. Every school has a job to do, and that's to teach the basics and teach them well. If we want to make sure no child is left behind, every child must learn to read, and every child must learn to add and subtract. So in return for federal dollars, we're asking states to design accountability systems to show parents and teachers whether or not children can read and write and add and subtract in grades 3 through 8. The fundamental principle of this bill is that every child can learn. We expect every child to learn, and you must show us whether or not every child is learning.
The Education Revolution was launched in 2001 by the Unity Labour Party under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who claimed that education was the key to social and economic development that was implemented over the years with the support of various partners. The policy is a term used to describe a series of reforms and initiatives that aim to improve the quality and access of education in various levels and sectors in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Some of the main components of the policy are achieving universal primary and secondary education for all children and youth, developing a comprehensive education sector plan that covers early childhood, primary, secondary, tertiary, technical and vocational, and adult education, expanding vocational and adult education opportunities to enhance skills and employability, increasing funding and resources for education and improving the quality and relevance of the curriculum and assessment, and also by strengthening the governance and management of the education system and enhancing the capacity of teachers and administrators.
Whereas access for some children was indeed an issue, the major concern for the ministry was the standard of education obtained in privately run early childhood centers.
Because there was nothing in place to sort of have early childhood supervisors being accountable, you had the whole scenario of people beginning early childhood centers all over the place. And as you said, traditionally, the operations was based on, it was a sort of a little babysitting, as it were, that the early childhood supervisors would be doing. Because there's nothing there that holds them in line to say you've got to raise the bar, you've got to give quality early childhood education, then the quality itself was affected. So you've got children going to schools all around, but the quality of service in preschools differ because they didn't really start on the same level. It all depends on a number of issues. Is the area a disadvantaged area?
To deal with the quality concerns experienced in some early childhood centers, standards have been established to standardize the operations.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.